Have you ever seen a nightmare before? I'm not talking about those things you get when a dream starts to go south. I'm talking about a real nightmare. Seeing one tends to make a man turn sour. Makes him hit the bottle a little harder than he used to. Not me, though. I threw out the bottle of scotch from my desk drawer and haven't touched a drop since. Not since the last time she walked through my door.
Mr. Eckert, there's a woman outside that won't come in until she knows you'll take on her case. Says her husband, Alexander, has been missing for a week now.
Isn't that a bit commonplace for us? Shouldn't the police handle this?
Just wait until I tell you who she says she is before you say no. She's Ariana Bronwyn, of the Bronwyns.
The Bronwyns own the best vineyard in this part of the country, and specialize in only the richest clientele. Invite her in then. If anything, having her bankroll our operations for a couple weeks might come in handy.
Mr. Eckhart?
Miss Bronwyn, Roger is fine. How can I put my services to use for you? My secretary filled me in a bit before we let you in, but I would need more information to start my investigation.
Straight to the point, I see. Well, as someone in your line of work surely knows, the police in this town can be a bit unreliable when it comes to how they handle a missing persons case. Even with my status, their resources are finite. My husband is a very important man, and if he isn't found soon, I fear the worst. It is my hope that someone with your reputation will be able to find him before the police can.
Do you have any leads that would give me a better starting off point?
Last I heard from him, he was overseeing a delivery of wine to our distributor for England at the shipyards. If you find him, there will be a bottle of 1900 Bronwyn, an especially good vintage, if I remember. A bit before my time, though. In it for you as a bonus to your regular fees.
That's very generous of you, ma'am. I'll do my damnedest to find him for you.
Thank you, Roger. I hope to hear from you soon with an update.
It wasn't too long from when she'd left my room that I began to beat the pavement to find out where Alexander had ended up. The first place I decided to look would be the office of the shipping company that the Bronwyns used to ship their wines overseas. Mr. Williamson, thank you for meeting with me. I know how busy your schedule can be. I've been hired by Mrs. Bronwyn to locate where her husband is, and it is on good authority that you were one of the last people to see him.
The last I saw of him was when his driver came to pick him and Frederick, the sommelier, after they had made sure the barrels were prepared for shipping. But I have already told the police this, and I'm not sure what else I can do to add that would be of much service.
Thank you, sir. You've given me a direction to head in at least. I'll let you get back to work.
Actually, Mr. Eckert, come to think of it, Frederick was acting a touch uncharacteristic compared to the other times I've seen him.
How so?
He seemed shell-shocked, like how our boys were when they came back from the war in Europe and Japan.
I decided that my next plan of action would be to go question Frederick at the vineyard about what happened after he and Alexander left the shipping yard. It took me a while to find Frederick upon reaching the Bronwyns' vineyard, but when I finally found him, he was sealing a barrel of wine. Excuse me, sir. Are you Frederick the sommelier? Sir, I just have a couple of questions to ask you. Drop the hammer, sir.
I was only doing what I was told. I loved him like a brother.
Frederick died in my arms, and as he did so, I noticed 2 pinpricks on his neck when he expired. I pity him now knowing what he went through. I began to walk over to the barrel of wine that he was sealing up, and inside I found the body of Alexander Bronwyn, with his throat torn out and stuffed inside. The police responded to a call about the shot I fired off in the vineyard. I stayed to give them my statement, but while doing so, the medical examiner commented on the Bram Stoker nature of the wounds on Frederick's neck. It was then and there that I should have realized the mess that I had gotten myself into with this case. It wasn't until the next day that Ariana came by my office. I'm sorry that I had to end up finding your husband like this, Miss Bronwyn.
Deep down I knew this was most likely how this would end. I have no clue why Frederick would do this to him, though. They were so close, and he had never shown any hint of the savagery that my husband's body displayed. Will you share a glass with me to help keep his memory alive? To Alexander.
Something has been bothering me about what happened, though. Frederick's last words were that he was doing what he was told to do. Couple that with the apparent bite marks on his neck, and it just doesn't add up right. I began to feel woozy from the wine, and I saw an animalistic fury in her eyes that I had never seen in any human before. I tried to get up from the chair with my gun, but I fell to the ground.
I was hoping he wouldn't talk, but one thing that I've learned over a century or two is that good help is hard to come by.
She began to walk over me with a savage smile, and fear had gripped me for the first time since I had left the European theater. The atrocities I saw over there could never have prepared me for the nightmare I saw in front of me then.
The only reason I hired you was to get the cops off of my scent, because of course they would suspect the wife when the husband goes missing. She would have the most to gain. It's a shame you learned too much at the vineyard. You are a handsome morsel. Too bad I'm going to have to do to you what I did to dear, sweet Alexander.
I began to fumble for something to defend myself when my arms touched one of the broken armrests. As she leaned over me, I plunged that makeshift weapon into the back of her chest, and suddenly, a pile of ash fell on me. Ever since that day, I knew this world was full of nightmares. I've seen real nightmares.